so we can get this on to YouTube later. Okay, there we go. So once again, if there's anybody who has a question, or if I'm going too fast, or if my screen stops sharing or something, please shout out in the chat, or just unmute yourself and let me know. So we ended our last lesson on about a little more than halfway through what I would consider good research for this person. So let's look at our checklist that we were using last time to remember where we need to start off, because it's been a week, it's been a while, I'm not quite sure where we need to start, and that's why keeping good notes and keeping a good checklist can be helpful. So if you remember last time, I went ahead and marked in yellow, or just in a different color, where I wanted to do my next set of research, and that was marriage. So let's go ahead and let's look at what sources we already have. And I know my next goal is to search for marriage information for Benjamin. And I want to just refresh on what information I already have. We have these censuses, and we have the draft cards, and then we have the death records. So, whoops, decided to log me out. How rude. Okay, so let's look at the death record. Okay, and then the draft cards. And we also had a census over here that we weren't sure about, but we thought was probably our person. So let's, whoops, that's weird. Okay, that link got broken, so we will look for that later. Let's look and see if we can't find who we think that Benjamin's wife is. So if I remember correctly, we had a 1940 census that he was showing up in. I'm just going to go ahead and use that search records feature right here on the right to take all the information that we already have and search for it, rather than looking for all this stuff on my own. And I'm going to filter it by 1940 census. There we go. There's the census we were thinking about. Okay, so we know that Benjamin died in San Diego. We have that information right here on his page and from his death records. So, and we know that he had his draft card in San Diego in 1942. So it's likely that he was living in San Diego in the 40s. And this is the closest match that we found. We have a Benjamin Patterson, and he's married, and he was born in Arkansas. Now, I'm not sure why the image is not showing up here. That might just be a fluke on family search right there. Maybe I need to log out and log back in, because that's weird. Let me try that. Okay. I'll go to my recents. That way I don't have to look for all that information. Let's see. Let's try that again and see if the images are going to show up. Sometimes the servers get a little funky and have a hard time pulling up images. So on his sources, we have, okay, yeah, so the images are being weird right now. I'm not sure why that is, but we have it here on Ancestry. So remember, we always want to look at the image of every record that we can. So this is the closest match we found in the 1940 census. We have a Benjamin Patterson who was born in Arkansas, which matches what information we have for him. He's born in Arkansas, and he was born about 1901. That matches the same year. He's married. He lives in San Diego. And he's got this whole big family right here. So let's look at the image and see what other information there is and just make sure that this looks like a real good match. So this is the house number. We could look up the house, see if it's still there. You can just do that on Google Maps. You can just, what is that, 7052 El Cajon Street. And sometimes something's still there. Looks like there's this little building. And it doesn't look like they have a street view, but maybe it's that little house right there. So I like to look that up if they have an address just to see where my ancestor lived. The later censuses typically have that. Then they also have the home value. They do not live on a farm. Okay, so we have Benjamin Patterson. He's the head of household. He's 39. That matches what we know. His highest grade school was 8th grade. He was born in Arkansas, and in 1935, they lived in Bowie, Texas. So that's something to pay attention to. He's a contractor. Okay, so all that good information, and then we have Dorothy right here. So Dorothy's the wife, so we're going to look for a marriage record for him and Dorothy. Now, if we remember, now Family Search is having a hard time pulling up this image, so I'm just going to go to it here on Ancestry. But the World War I draft record, which we have attached to him on Family Search, lists his nearest relative as Dorth Patterson. So that could be Dorothy in the 1940 census. And we do know that Benjamin was probably married by 1918, 1917. So he would have only been 17 or 18 years old. So that's pretty young. Let's see if we can't find a marriage for him. So last time when we looked on the research wiki, we knew that marriage records started in the 1880s or so. So we know that we should be able to find one. Now, if I just go to search and records, it'll pull up here. I can also go to the catalog. But I'm just going to go down here to the right and go search, find a collection. And I'm going to go Oklahoma marriages, and then there's 2 record sets. Now, the reason I chose Oklahoma is when I look at this World War I draft card, and I'm not looking in San Diego, because this is going to be closer to the time of his marriage, 1918, when he's younger and he's 18. He's married at this point, and he's living in Sparks, Lincoln, Oklahoma. So I'm going to go ahead and search in Oklahoma before I search other places, because that's going to be closer to the time of his marriage. So I'm going to go ahead and look in county marriages, because those records are typically better. But if I don't find them in here, I'm going to look in the general marriages as well. So I'm just going to put in Benjamin Patterson. I'm going to leave birthplace and birth year out of that. I don't really need to narrow that down. But I also, I'm going to put Dorothy for spouse right here. And now I don't know her maiden name, so I'm just going to leave that blank. So I want them to pull up every record that they have in this record set as a Benjamin Patterson or a similar name who married a woman named Dorothy. And we're going to see what we've got. So I'm going to press search. And we'll see if it pulls it up. Okay, so we have a Benjamin H. Patterson. Now that seems like a real good match. We have this is for Benjamin Howard Patterson in Kearney, Lincoln, Oklahoma. So we know this World War I draft card had him in Lincoln County. So that's a good match already. And then we have Dortha Pratt. So Dorothy and Dortha are pretty similar. It might be a transcription error, it might just be a nickname, and they were married in 1918. So that would be just before this draft record was created. So that matches all the information that we know. He was born about 1900. So this is looking like a real good match. So we're going to go ahead and click that. Now, again, I'm not sure why the images are having such a hard time right now. I know that it was pulling up an image earlier when I was practicing before this lesson, but this also might be a good time to show how to use the catalog to look up images that aren't pulling up right here. So we have Benjamin Patterson. The marriage date was this day. All this good information. So all that information matches, but I want to see if I can see the image. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this film number right here. Copy that film number. I'm going to go to search and then catalog. And then right down here, it says search for film number. So anytime you see an indexed record and you don't see an image, check the catalog if there's a film number and see if you can't see that image. So I'm going to click that. I'm just going to bring up all these. I'm going to, let's see, is this one right here. And so I can look up that image and I can find that image right there. I can pull up all those images. Now it looks like Family Search is having a hard time pulling up images right now, so I'm just not going to take the time to do that. But that would be how you would look up a film number and find the image for a record that is indexed. So I'm looking at this, and this looks like a real good match. It matches all the information that we know. So I'm going to go ahead and review and attach this record. And I'm going to show you how you can create a person from these records. So I'm going to select Benjamin to be my focus person. So you can go ahead and attach. And now if you're not quite sure if this is a real match or if you have a reason why you need to explain why the source is a good match, this is the place to type that up. You can choose what you want to use it to source. It's not necessary to always write a reason why you're attaching it, as long as it's fairly straightforward. But that is where you would do that. Now, I don't have a wife for him in Family Search yet when you look at his family members. So I'm going to go ahead and create a person by pressing this add button right here. And it'll take all the information for the record and it's going to put it and fill in all this information. So I don't know what her middle name is. I'm going to go ahead and put Dorothy rather than Dortha because she showed up in that census as Dorothy and she shows up in other records as Dorothy. Spoiler alert. But what's nice is now we know her maiden name. So if I wanted to do more research on her, I could find more about her parents and stuff now that we have this marriage record. And that's not going to show up in any census records after she's married. So I've got that. We don't know where she was born yet, but we do know that she is probably deceased since she was born in 1897. So this all looks good. I'm going to create this new person. And Family Search will double check their database that there isn't a similar person already. And they will pop up a little message that says, are you sure it's not this person? So don't worry too much about creating a duplicate from these records. Make sure you aren't when they do have that pop up, but Family Search will do that work for you. To make sure everything's standardized, and then you can go ahead and attach that record. And now, when you refresh, Benjamin now has a wife. So now that I've created a new person, I'm going to put her in my research tracker. Dorothy M. Pratt. And I'm not going to take the time to do any research right now, but now I know that she's on my list and I want to do some more research for her in the future. So I know she was born in 1897. I'm going to block out all of that. But now she's on my list of people to research, but I'm not going to get down that rabbit hole yet. So now that I refresh, now we can go ahead and look at our research tracker and see what we want to do now. I'm going to mark off that marriage record. We have a marriage record for both of them now. So we know that there is no birth records from the research wiki. So I'm just going to put not applicable. So now I want to make sure I have a burial record, 1920 and 30 and 40 censuses. Those are my next things to do. So let's go for the censuses first. I'm going to do that search records thing again. And we know we found him in the 1940 census. So let's just go ahead and attach that. Now that we've proved that he is married to Dorothy and living in San Diego, we can go ahead and attach this census. And I'm starting with the later census because I want to work closer in time to me backwards, or closer in time to what information I know, which is that he died in San Diego and had a draft record there. So, well, 1940 census. We'll check that information. I already looked at the image on Ancestry. I'm going to go ahead and review and attach this. Okay, so the nice thing about this census is it also has all of these children right here. Now I need to pay attention. He's got 5 children right here, and then he's got some grandchildren and a son-in-law. So I need to make sure that I'm not attaching these people as children. I'm going to look at that census and look at that information a little better, make sure those names are spelled correctly. So we have Bernice Lee, looks to be the oldest daughter. She's 21. And we have Dalton. So she must be married because that's her husband and their children. So we have Bernice, Dalton, Aviva, Edna Lee, and Bessie. So those seem to be their 5 children. They were all born in Oklahoma, which makes sense. That's where their parents were married. We were all living in Texas in 1935. So all good information. I'm going to go ahead and attach the sources. I want to add all this information over. Make sure there's a standard that you choose if it has this little yellow mark. I'm going to go ahead and choose San Diego. There we go. So Dorothy, and attach that to her. Then I'm going to create his children. So her last name was Patterson when she was born. And there we go. I don't know if she's living or dead, so I'm going to mark her as living until I have a source that proves that she's dead. Now, she's probably passed away because that is 101 years ago, but we know that there are people who are 101 that are still out there, and she might be one of them. So until I have a source that says she has died, or until it's been 110 years since her birth, the practice is to mark them as living. So I'm going to create that person. So you have Bernice Patterson. I'm going to add that source so they know where I got that information. And I'm going to do that for all of his other children too. So as you can see, looking and finding these censuses has found 5 children that I didn't know about and a wife that I didn't know about that Benjamin can now have some temple work done to seal them to him. So that is a great source for temple names, these censuses. It's a great place to find missing children, especially. Now, something to pay attention to when you are adding children from censuses and other records is pay attention to the spelling and pay attention to any possible nicknames, because that might help you find them in the future. So Bessie, that might be her birth name, but it also, her birth name might be Elizabeth, it might be Bess, it might be something, Bessie might be a nickname. Viva might be a nickname for Vivian or something. So these are not for sure exactly what their names are, but it is a starting spot. So now when I refresh Benjamin's page, now we have his wife and 5 children. So his page is becoming a lot more complete. So I'm going to enter their names on my research tracker so I know that I want to research them in the future. So we have Bernice, Dalton, Viva, Edna, Lee, and Bessie. So Bernice. And what was that last one? Bessie. Okay, so again, I'm not going to do any research right this second, but now I have them on my research tracker so I know who I want to do next so that Benjamin's research is complete and his family's research is complete. So now that I have the 1940, I'm going to look for the 1930 because if you remember, we spent a lot of time trying to find the 1920 and we never quite found it. So I'm just going to keep that as a question mark and say I need to do some more in-depth research for it later. But I'm going to go to 1930. Now, when I'm looking for Benjamin in 1930, I want to pay attention to where he was in the years surrounding. So we know he's not in San Diego in 1930 because in 1935, he was in Bowie, Texas. So, I mean, it's possible he was in San Diego and he just moved back and forth, but people didn't move quite as often back then. So I'm going to look for him in Texas first, and then maybe possibly Oklahoma or Arkansas, because that is where the family began and where the children were born. So if we look at the youngest daughter, Bessie, she was 12. So in 1928, it said that she was born in Oklahoma. So in 1928, they were in Oklahoma, and in 1935, they were in Texas. So I'm going to look in Oklahoma and Texas. When I search the 1930 census, this is what comes up. We have an Arkansas in Dallas, Texas. Born about the same year, but he's going by Howard, and Edith is probably his wife, and we know his wife is Dorothy, and there should be children, so that's probably not our guy. And then we have Ben Patterson, born in Arkansas, living in Oklahoma, and his wife is Nevada, and they have completely different children, so that doesn't look like our guy either. And then we have just totally different people. So I know that I need to kind of adjust my search here to kind of help it out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to exit out of this marriage information. I don't need the death information. Let's expand the years of his birth. Maybe his age was marked wrong. So I'm going to do a 10-year span. He was born in 1990 or 1900. So I'm going to go 10 years before and 10 years after, just to give me a good range of years where maybe he was just marked incorrectly. Okay, so we have we have more results. We have a Benjamin Patterson born in 1908 living in San Diego, but he only has his one child, so maybe that's him. Doesn't look like it. So maybe it's his birthplace that is wrong. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete the birthplace and then expand it again. So we have a Benjamin H. Patterson in Virginia. That doesn't look like our guy. Let's see. More Howards. Okay. So now I'm going to delete the middle name. Let's expand it even more. So we have Benjamin Patterson. And now I'm going to put residence as Texas because of that census. Let's start with Texas. So I want to see any Benjamin Pattersons born in this year range in Texas. So when you're looking for censuses and it's getting kind of tricky, you just kind of have to play with this refine your search tool right here and see what comes up. So now we have a Benjamin N. Patterson. Now N could have been misindexed. It could be an H for Howard. So it says he was born in 1892 in Texas, and he's living in Montague, Texas. So that's a good sign because he was living in Bowie, Montague, Texas in 1935. Lola, now I don't know who Lola is. It could be Dorothy, but maybe a nickname or something. But the children match pretty good. So we have a Dalton, we have a Bernice, we have a Vera Aline, a Benjamin N. So maybe this could be a possible match. So we have a Bernice, we have a Dalton. Vera could be a Viva. Edna Lee could be an Aline. Maybe the person who gave the information for the census didn't know this family super well because they say they're all born in Texas. The years are a little bit off. So we're going to want to look at the image before we go ahead and assume that this is our guy. So a lot of the children match, but we're not sure. So I'm going to look at it on Ancestry because Family Search is having a hard time. This is a new child, Benjamin N. Patterson. Bessie, maybe? Yeah, let's take a look because that's got too many issues with the information to be totally sure. But so we have Texas, Montague County. Look on the side and it says Bowie. So that's a good sign. So we have Bowie and Montague, Texas, which is exactly where they said they were living in 1935. Okay, so we have a Benjamin. I can see how they got an N from that, but if you look at the H in head, I can also see how that could be an H. So Benjamin H or N Patterson. Lola, that doesn't match great. We have a Dalton, which matches perfectly to this Dalton. Ages are a little bit off. We have a Bernice L. That could be a Viva, V-I-V-A. Yeah, that could definitely be a Viva. Aline A. I'm not sure about that one. And then Benjamin, that could be an H Jr. I think that's Benjamin H Jr. and it says son. Okay, so this, he's a farmer. Said he served in, he's not a veteran. Okay, that's a worker code. Okay. And this information doesn't make any sense. Texas, Texas, Tennessee. So this is a pretty decent match for a place and for Benjamin and the number of children and about the same ages. There's a little bit of a discrepancy. So my gut says that this is them and that their neighbor probably gave the information and they just like guessed on all sorts of things. They couldn't remember all the kids' names. But because it's there's so many issues with it, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy the link right here. And I'm going to pay attention to it. I'm not going to attach it yet because I need to just like think it out a little bit more. I need to paste that link right there. So now I can find that link real quick, but I don't feel comfortable attaching it without doing a little more thinking about it. I really need to make sure that there is not another family in Texas that is a Lola and is an Aline and a Benjamin Jr. I need to just double check and make sure that information really is a good match before I attach it, because I don't want to mistake two separate families for the same family and then have them get lost in space because I've attached the source. So I have that record. I think I found them, but I need to do a little more digging to make sure that it's not a different family. So when you look at this, I've got some pretty good, I've almost done with Benjamin. I got a couple more things I need to double check. And then I can probably move on to another person. So we're gonna do land and probate a different time, or I will at a different time. I'm not gonna take the time to do that today, but let's look and see if we can't find burial information and maybe a newspaper article, like an obituary or something. So if we go back to Benjamin's page, do the search records. I use this all the time. Click on the little family search. And now I'm going to go ahead and search by collections. I want to narrow down what type of records I want to see. I want to see newspaper, and I want to see burial records. So some good burial records are going to be Find a Grave and also Billion Graves right here. So I'm going to filter by Find a Grave and Billion Graves, and those are separate websites where people go to cemeteries and they take pictures and they put them online for people to look at. So we have two sources right here. We have Benjamin H. Patterson, Benjamin H. Patterson. So this is probably the same person. This is probably our person. Matches the years and the place. So San Diego. So if you remember when we looked at Find a Grave last time, the information looked okay, but there was no picture. So I'm going to check Billion Graves right here. And it looks like Billion Graves has a picture. So that is great information. Now, if you look at the gravestone, there's not a whole lot of genealogically useful information, except for the fact that there's a nickname here. So it looks like Benjamin went by Pat, maybe by some of his friends. We know his middle initial and the year range and everything. You can also see on this website some nearby graves. So Viva P. Hunt, that seems like that might be his daughter, Viva Patterson Hunt. Maybe she married somebody with the last name Hunt. You can kind of take a look at the people around, and this is going back to that that fan theory I was telling you when we were talking about censuses. Check out your friends, associates, and neighbors who's nearby. We know that Dorothy M is nearby, so that looks like that's his wife. Looks like she died in 1986, so she had a nice long life. So that's something to pay attention to. So you know that there's some people nearby that also help confirm that this is our guy. So I'm going to go ahead and attach that. And I'm going to mark in my research planner. Now I have a direct source, not an indirect source. I'm going to change that to an X. And I'm going to add that information. He was buried in San Diego as well. And now we have a burial source. And I would take the time to attach Find a Grave as well, but we're going to move on from that. Now I want to look at newspapers. One good source is newspapers.com, but it does require a subscription. I believe the library, the Family History Library, I don't know if that has a subscription, but I know the public library has at least a basic subscription for that. But also on Family Search, they have what's called the Genealogy Bank obituary source. So that's a good place to check. So we're going to look up there first. I also have a newspaper subscription. So if there is an article you want me to look up, go ahead and just like send me an email or a text and I can look it up and send it to you. If I get rid of all of this information right here, I just want to see if there's any Benjamin Howard Pattersons. There we go. So here's a newspaper record right here. There is an image available. Again, I don't know why Family Search is being so difficult with it, but so now we have an obituary right here. And it lists all these relatives. And if you read the actual obituary, it makes more sense. It will have a picture some of the time. So I encourage you to look up the article if it doesn't have a picture. But this is all good information. So we have the wife. He has a daughter, Viva Hunt, Bernice Lee, Lee Johnson, Faye. I don't know who Faye is. That's another person. We have Dalton. And we have some in-laws right here, maybe. So here is a newspaper article, and I'm going to go ahead and attach that because it matches our information on death and birth right here, and for the people in his family. So now I'm going to add that. I'm going to ignore attaching it to all his wife and children right now just to save time. But so when we refresh our guy here, so remember when we started with Benjamin, he had one source, maybe two sources, and we had no good information on his birthday or his death day, and we didn't have any of these people here. So, but if I look at my research tracker, we've got marriage, death, burial, and we have 3 censuses, 3.5 censuses, an obituary, and 2 military sources. So that's great. We've covered our bases. We've got our vital records. We've got our censuses for the most part. We have a few things that we need to do more research on. We've got most of our censuses taken care of. We've got a newspaper article, and we've got some military stuff, so even some additional things. So now when I look at Benjamin, there's all these extra school records I can attach. We've got all this good information. We have all these people that we found. And now I can say we've got our bases covered, and now I can choose to either go really in depth, and I can do like probate and land records and do some more searching for him, or I can go ahead and move on to other members of his family that only have one source, or other siblings of his that have a few sources. Like Cora here only has one source. She'd be a good person to continue researching for. So now that I found his vital records and I have sources for all of this information here, now I can say that Benjamin Patterson, he is well researched here. He's got some ordinances that we need to perform. We can seal them to his spouse. We've got some more research we can do if we want to. But for the most part, Benjamin's been covered pretty well. Now I do want to show you some extra things that can kind of help make the research fun on Ancestry. So we go search records and we click on Ancestry. I encourage you to use both databases anyway, because Ancestry has lots of records that Family Search does not have. And when Family Search is being finicky with the images, it's a good place to go. But like there's some city directories right here that can help you learn more information. But when it searches ancestry with that search records tool, what I like to do is you go to edit search and you scroll all the way down. When Ancestry searches with the search records, all it does is search the records, the historical records, and sometimes that's all you want. But I also like to see stories, family trees, and photos because there are a lot of people doing family history out there, and a lot of them use Ancestry and don't use Family Search, and they might have known this person personally. They might have tons of pictures and all sorts of great information, and it's being hidden from me because it's not a record necessarily. So I'm going to click all of those every time I search somebody in Ancestry just so I can see what else is out there. And when I'm searching, so it's pulled up somebody's family tree. It has a full name for his wife. It has some good information here, so I could check that out. We've got all this good stuff. And then we get down here and there's all sorts of wonderful pictures for my ancestor here when I only have this little one. If I look at my memories on Family Search, I just have this one of the boys right here, but they're here, like here's a wonderful picture of my ancestor. So somebody has some pictures that they're sharing. This is great. And I can look at who it's been attached to. I can see what other research somebody's done. So this person has all this good information that I want to verify. I don't want to just collect this and pass it off as perfect because I have no idea. But it looks like they have a little more information on the names. They have like Bernice May, Dalton James, Edna Lee, Bessie Faye. So that's where that Faye came from. I can check their gallery. You can see all these great pictures and things like that. So see what other research other people have done on other websites and use it to boost your person up here on Family Search. You know, and you don't want to automatically assume that all their research that they've done is perfect. A lot of times on family trees and ancestry, they'll suggest this little leaf function right here is hints. And a lot of the hints that they give are other people's family trees. So it's really easy to just like move over all the information without verifying it. So if there's a mistake in someone's tree, it usually gets duplicated dozens of times on other people's trees. So always verify the information and check their research and make sure that it matches what you know. But you know, check out ancestry trees and check out what other people have uploaded. Sometimes they have stories that can help you piece together information a little bit better. So check that out. Before we close, I'm going to talk about RootsMagic. RootsMagic, this is what it looks like. RootsMagic is a software, and you can download it online. It's a genealogical software that serves as a place to keep all of your information where other people can't change it. It's a good place to back up all of your research. And it's really easy to use with Family Search. Now, I think it's $20 or $30. This is what professionals use mostly to create their research reports and things. And I'm just going to give you a quick demonstration so you can see what it is. And if it's something that you are interested in, then it might be something you want to do. But when you're creating a RootsMagic file, it's real easy. You can just name it, like I'll go Patterson family tree. You can decide how you want the dates to look. I like it like this. And when you do create it, if you mark LDS support and Family Search family tree support right here, and click all those information, then you'll be able to import your tree from my Family Search and all the sources from Family Search. So you start typing in your information or import it, and then it will create a family tree. And so I'll show you what that looks like. This is my husband's family tree. And it's a little old-fashioned, but it's really straightforward. So I'm going to go ahead and I want to put in all that work that I did for Benjamin Howard, and I want to import it here onto my software so that I have that information. It's secure. If family search crashes or if I lose all my internet or whatever, I have a file that keeps all the, or if somebody changes all the information on family search, I have a file here that keeps all the information that I did solid. So if you look on the right here, they have a little family search icon, and I'm just going to click that, Benjamin James Patterson. Now, Benjamin James Patterson is Benjamin Howard's father. So just show you a quick example on how you would just go ahead and import things from family search. Once you've imported your tree, which you can do with the file family search center here, and it'll say import right here, and you can import up to 10 generations. Now, I will warn you, if you do 10 generations, it'll take hours for it to import, because it will import literally everybody who's connected to the tree within 10 generations. So it can take a long time. So I typically start with like 4 or 5, and then kind of choose who I want to import from there. And it'll just have you log into your family search account from here, and it'll import the whole thing. And then you can do this family search support. This little icon here is on every single person that is on family search. And I can go ahead and click all of this information that I want to keep over. I can go ahead, I want to import my Benjamin Howard and all of his information. So I'm going to click this little family tree button right here, and I can add to RootsMagic, and I add him. And it takes a second or two, and then now he's here. So if I exit out, and I view his family, now we have Benjamin Howard here. Great. If I want to check his family search information, now I can import all of this information here. I can import his spouse and children. I can import the ordinance information. I can import all the sources, all that information here. Say what I want that source to be used for, and it'll pull all that source information over. So all the work that I did on family search, I can go ahead and keep on this program pretty easily. So you can also do things like color code your tree. You can do all your research reports like pedigree charts, print out family group sheets. You can use this publisher feature, and you can even create a book. So if you want to organize your family tree and send it off to all your family, you can do that from this program pretty well. So this is a great program to use, and I definitely recommend it if you're looking to keep your family tree a little more secure and untouched by other people. It's also a great place to do research reports and such. So I definitely recommend it if that's something you're interested in. You have a lifetime software download thing. So like once you buy it, if you change computers or you have multiple computers, you can download it onto any computer that you have. You just have the code and you can plug it in, and so you never have to lose it. But yeah, it's a great software if that's something you're interested in. But as for now, I think that is all we have today. So I'll go ahead and stop the recording here.